I recently heard that a very famous teacher retired, and that this teacher, I'm sure we all know, I'm not going to mention names just for the, I don't think it's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be appropriate or not, so I won't say it. But he mentioned that he had PTSD. He's actually retiring, and part of it is because he has PTSD. And for some reason, I thought that anybody who got to that level of teaching wouldn't have PTSD, but I must be off because I know he is a great teacher. But I don't know. I would be very surprised to hear that you have PTSD. But then again, I don't know. But what are your thoughts on that?
Frank, I read that it's PTSD related to the constant nerve pain that he's been living with the entire time he's been teaching and having a public life. It's physical and not a psychological situation. That's what I read.
Okay.
I'm sorry to break in, but
no. That's
I'll let regardless.
I appreciate it. I'll let Magdi.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. But that's good to hear.
To various degrees, we all have experienced all sorts of use the term traumas in our life. And it leaves an impact both psychologically and physiologically. So in terms of the non-dual teaching, we deal with the core PTSD. And the core PTSD is being somebody, being mortal. I mean, heck, what could be worse than, getting those bad news? You open the envelope, here you are, and then the small print is you're going to die, right? You're very lovely, but you're going to die. That's core PTSD, right? The belief in mortality, the belief that I am body, mind, and a mortal body, mind. That is the core issue that we deal with in Advaita, in our contemplations, our explorations. Now, there are other sorts of vasanas, other sort of realms of trauma besides the core PTSD. But they're not primary. They're not what we deal with. Psychologists deal with those things, with the personal trauma. But that is not the core exploration here. But what you will find is that even though you may come to the understanding about the reality of consciousness and the universality of consciousness, as this understanding is sort of percolating through your body-mind, as this understanding is being embodied, some of these layers of personal trauma may arise. And when they do, you deal with them, you explore them. You have no idea what they are, or maybe you might have an inkling of what they are, but they're dormant, not so much to the surface, but they may arise to the surface. And in time, you come to peace with those conditions, which does not mean that you will come to the complete freedom from these conditions. But although you may not have come to the complete freedom from these conditions, it does not in any way affect your freedom, the freedom of being. So you may at times experience a certain physiological and even some psychological contraction. But the psychological contraction will be of short duration and not really disturbing. Physiological contraction will have a longer duration, but also not significant. It does not disturb the peace. But Francis sometimes used to say that in freedom, you are 99.9% happy. In ignorance, you are 99.9% unhappy. But it's never 100%. That's, who cares?
Yeah, this is why. Yeah, but I used to always, I've heard the story about Alan Watts too. Alan Watts, I'm sure you know who he is.
Yes.
He supposedly died an alcoholic. I mean, he was an active alcoholic till he died. And I always wondered how because if you ever listen to him, he was really, seemed very awake to me.
He enjoyed getting high. I mean, it's freedom. What's
so that could just be like him. That could be just him just enjoying life and playing with the forms, with his own form in a way, right?
There may be an physiological addiction as well, but so what? I mean, it's not disturbing anybody, is it? And he didn't seem to care much about it. He enjoyed it. He wasn't complaining.
Yeah.
He wasn't unhappy. Well,
I think the mind sometimes just wants everything in boxes. Like, okay, if you're awakened, you don't do this and you don't do that. If you're not awakened, you do all this crazy stuff. It's very very black and white. And I'm realizing life is much more interesting than that. And I want to be open to all of it.
Yes, and also consciousness is always awakened. I mean, there is ignorance is only real from the perspective of ignorance. But from the perspective of consciousness, ignorance is a game that consciousness plays. Like the moon veiling, the sun veiling itself, or the moon veiling itself. That it's not that there is a reality to ignorance. So if you look at the world, I mean, there are volcanic eruptions that destroy forests and animals and villages. From the perspective of freedom and peace and consciousness and understanding, all of that is not significant. But yet, living dharmically, living according to the principles of love and understanding and wisdom and compassion, it's very important. Now that's the mark of understanding. The seal of understanding is living out of love, peace, and compassion and understanding. But you cannot see it, in somebody else. It's an internal process. You cannot look at somebody and say, oh, well, this person is free or this person is not free. Although when you are with somebody who is truly free, you can sense something. You sense that. But we don't have access to the first person experience. Only you have access to your first person experience. So sometimes we see a teacher acting in a certain way and we say, oh, this person is falling off the podium. That is not the first person experience. That's the third person experience. You're projecting, you don't know. You have no access. So this is why it's important not to be judgmental, to have a grain of salt when it comes to your thoughts and your ideas about people. Not to be so on board with your mind, because your mind is conditioned.
Yeah.
The only thing that is not conditioned is love, beauty, peace, and freedom and happiness. That is not conditioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm listening less and less to mind. It's it's to me, it's become so secondary to listen to what mind says. I heard somebody the other day say that thoughts never really talking to us. Thoughts are never talking to us. They're just talking, but they're never really, like, a lot of times we take this criticism, self-criticism, as gospel, when it's the thoughts are never directing anything at us. They're just talking away.
Yes, but actually thoughts don't talk.
Don't talk at all. Yeah.
They're just appearances.
Yeah.
It's like you're watching a movie and some thoughts tell you it's 4 o'clock, Frank, it's 4 o'clock, you have to go visit mom at 4:15, so in a way then you could say, well, this thought is talking to me.
Yeah,
you could say
that's, yeah.
But it's an appearance. And this appearance, the thought that appears to you, it's not being emitted from planet. It's arising from you to you. So you don't.
But it's never personal. It's never personal. It doesn't know the self, right? It doesn't really know the self.
Thought doesn't know. Thought is known, but is not knowing. We often We often say that. It's very important to be clear about that. That the thought doesn't know you. You know the thought.
I know the thought. Yeah.
You perceive the thought, and you're the decider. You can perceive the thought which comes out of you. Oh, it's 4 o'clock. You have to pick up mom at 4:15. You're the decision maker. You may decide. You pick up the phone. Hey, mom, listen, I'm not going to come today. If you don't mind, I'll come tomorrow. You see, it's not like.
So I'm glad you said that, because so now in a case like that, where the thought says, "Hey, you got to get up and go to mom's," which is what I do every day.
Yeah.
So it does seem like it's talking to me, but it's really talking to a made-up me, because it doesn't know the self. So it can never be talking to the self. So it's like a thought maybe talking to another thought.
No, its thought doesn't talk. It's appearing to consciousness.
It's appearing to, right, exactly. It's not talking to anybody. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Appearing to consciousness. And so it is information. First, it's important to understand that the thought is arising out of you. It's made out of you. It's not like there is a thought coming from outside of you to you. So this thought arises to you, from you, and you perceive it. So you're creating it and perceiving it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very mysterious, but it's fascinating. It's fascinating. Mm-hmm. Thought is never, what you perceive is not apart from you. The perceiver and the perceived are not two.
Mm-hmm.
That which you perceive arises to you, out of you. So you perceive the thought. The thought doesn't perceive anything. The thought is a form. It's a subtle object. A subtle object or a gross object do not perceive. Only consciousness perceives. So you, consciousness, perceive the thought. Oh, it's 4 o'clock. I need to go pick up mom. And another thought appears to you. Let me call her. Maybe I'll go tomorrow. Let's see how, I'll call her. Maybe she's okay. I'll just call her on the phone. And you'll call her and she'll say, oh, no, Frank, I'd really love to see you. I was really excited and, I baked something for you. Please come over. And you may decide, okay, I'll see you soon, mom. You are the commander-in-chief and the only commander. You are it.
Mhm.
You are that. You, not you, Frank. You,
Right.
consciousness. You are
Consciousness,
that.
yeah.
There's only one reality. And this one reality is I. And it's not made out of flesh and bones. It's not made out of atoms and molecules. It's not made out of brain cells. It's not made out of gluons. It's not made out of anything.
Mm.
Things are made out of it. Whatever things are.
Yeah, if you don't put labels on anything, it's just one big, just being. It just is.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Thanks, Maggie. I'll let you go.
All right,
Thanks
thanks.
a lot.
Nice talking to you. Nice to see you.